Everyone, welcome to tonight's Board of Health meeting for February 11th, 2026. Just a reminder, we are being recorded. We will first call this meeting to order. And we'll do roll call.
Tom here.
Joyce here. Colleen here.
Jack here.
Alan here. Thank you very much, everyone. Next, we'll do good and welfare for the public. We have no one in the live audience. Do we have anyone at home?
Nobody at home is online tonight.
All right, we'll move to new business, 17 Hartford Avenue West, a local upgrade.
All right, for 17 Hartford Avenue West, Tom Ryder, our septic engineer for Title V. He has stated that Title V requires that the soil absorption system is located 100 feet from a private well. The applicant requests an offset of 80 feet from their own existing private well. As this is an upgrade and the site limitations create constraints to upgrade to Title V new construction standards, Tom Ryder is recommending the approval of the Title V upgrades.
Any board members have any questions?
The other question I had was, I know in Tom's letter, he indicated that the building for the repair is currently served by a failed septic system. I know, Jack, we talked a little bit about it yesterday. I was just trying to compare that to the application. It was listed as voluntary. But I didn't know if he was saying it was a failed septic system, would there have been a Title V that would have been done?
I never received a Title V, so I don't know where he's getting that information from.
So we don't know if it was actually truly voluntary or if there was a Title V done and it was determined to be in failure.
I would think that that's probably what happened, that they were selling the property. Were they selling the property?
Yeah, it's a transfer, right, Jack?
Right,
I believe so, yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought probably happened. When they were selling it, it didn't come up good. Yeah.
Okay, so I, along with the approval, we should get a copy of a Title V.
Eventually, yes.
Right.
They have up to 30 days to submit it once the Title V is done.
Okay, okay. And I mean, we have a good relationship with them, so you could actually, if you felt it necessary, make sure that they know we're expecting one.
Correct.
Engineering firm's very good.
Yep.
All right, so we'll have a motion.
Well, just one thing, just so on the page 2 of the application under B, would the appropriate box to have checked would have been required following inspection pursuant or no? Versus it being voluntary. You know what I mean?
Hmm. I would say it probably would be voluntary. It would be voluntary just because of the fact that they had to have a whole septic plan done and all that sort of stuff.
Well, wouldn't it be required following an inspection though? Because there'd have to be an inspection
You're asking the right person. You gotta
on the
make sure.
transfer.
That's the proposed upgrade of the system.
Right.
And so when they were out there, they must have discovered that it wasn't working right. And so that's, to me, that's voluntary.
Well, how do you discover it's not working right other than if you see a
You do
bug?
some testing, yeah.
But
No, because it was for sale, so they had to have a Title
Right,
V done.
right.
So obviously, the Title V inspector looked at it and said, either there's two types of failure. It's a function, you see a puddle, or meet criteria. So obviously, the Title V failed, so now they have to, so now this is the local upgrade.
so I'm just wondering how Tom knew that if we didn't get a Title V, would he have gotten a Title
They
V?
could have contacted him directly. They may know Tom Ryder.
But when he was designing the, when the engineer was designing the plan and whatnot, I'm sure him and Tom had her and Tom had conversations about it.
Right.
I'm actually looking a little closer here, and I don't see what is existing for a system.
I think it's
Could be a
under,
cesspool.
right, like in here somewhere.
So it's underneath the new leach field?
Well, I'm not sure about that, really.
Well, the plan wouldn't show
The plan wouldn't show what
What
was
the
existing?
No,
Well, it would if it was away from, or should if it was away from what the new system is going to be. You should see the old, because a lot of times on the plans, you see reference to the old and.
Right, or it was
Reference.
cesspool that was being replaced, so,
Right.
I mean, those are good questions, Tom.
A leaching field, see this thing that says leaching field?
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if it's in that area.
Nowhere do I see what existed.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is that, I mean, it's better than what's there now, which is a failed system, so.
Oh,
right.
sure,
it's being
yeah.
upgraded.
I mean, you could maybe call it more of a technicality, but I would just, from a crossing the T and dotting the I perspective, I would just kind of want to know definitively how this all kind of came about, just to match the information on the application with what transpired. But you're right, it's ultimately, it's a better,
Right,
but it's better for the property, better for the environment.
yeah.
Yeah, anything that meets Title V is,
Although cesspools can meet Title V.
Depends.
I thought if they
It's a functioning.
pass muster.
You have to meet the criteria, right?
Yeah, but you have to meet the criteria, right? So as long as they meet criteria,
Yep.
you can continue with one.
okay, do we, are there any questions that we want answered along with the approval?
Well, from my perspective, it wasn't so much the design aspect, because as Colleen pointed out, I mean, much better proposal that's coming forth. And the actual request for the upgrade, I think, just has to do with the reduction in the setback.
Right,
So
standard,
that is what it is. I think that's what we'd be approving.
right,
My questions just kind of go to the more the technical aspect of how this all
the
kind of,
history,
yeah, kind of came about. So
okay,
from the straight up approval of the upgrade itself, I'd be fine with approving the upgrade. I would just kind of want to get answers to those little particulars.
well, we can do that. We can
Yeah,
do the approval.
Yeah.
And we can request from the,
So
Engineer.
I'm just looking at this.
some history.
Limit, remove and replace A horizon, B horizon, and any contaminated material.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking that it must have been in this area. I
Okay,
mean, and they cleaned it all up and didn't put in the system.
they're gonna put the leach field there.
Yeah,
No, that would make sense.
right there.
Yeah.
Oh, you
no,
don't
that's
have
good.
it. I'm sorry.
It was.
Honest to God.
Get the magnifying glass. Okay, so
It did work fine.
Can't
do
stand
you
it.
still want more information on the history? of how this
Well,
came
at a
about?
point, we could do as a follow-up. Would
Okay,
be great if we could just, you know,
okay, so let's do a motion
approve the
for
upgrade.
the local upgrade.
Yeah.
So I need a motion and a second.
I'll make the motion to accept the approval of the local upgrade for 17
Hartford Avenue.
Hartford Avenue. West.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Tom, I.
Joyce, I.
Al and I. And maybe request the history of how this came about.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of notes and.
Just a couple of. Mhm. Perfect.
I was planning on going down there today,
Don't worry.
but yeah, just because that's what I like to do. I like to go and see what they're doing,
Yeah,
but my life is sort of clustered.
All right, moving on, dumpster regulation amendments, draft review and discussion.
last week's packet.
Yeah, I think I got that.
All right, so on page 1, section A, we're adding these regulations apply to all dumpsters in the town of Mendon, whether for residential, commercial, or industrial use. We all get the copies of the,
I have a copy. Probably.
I always look on it.
Oh, all right.
And I'm looking there.
All right, so page 1C, temporary definition, possible change from 60 days to 90 days. That was a discussion Tom and I were having to see if the board wanted to change that.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, the projects do tend to take
Yeah.
longer than anticipated.
So
I
that was the thought, give a little extra. I didn't think the extra 30 was a big, it gives the, resident or entity a little more room before they'd have to,
Re-up.
re-up.
Okay, that's good.
So you guys like the 90 days?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Page 2, section E, number 3. It's working. We are changing at the time of the application or otherwise specified, the applicant shall submit to the board the following two, changing it. If the applicant is the vendor/contractor supplying the dumpster, the applicant shall submit to the board the following.
Okay, I like that. Joyce?
Yeah, me too.
Page 2, section E, number 4, adding it as a new number 4. If the applicant is the property owner, the applicant shall submit to the board the following: A non-refundable permit fee as outlined in section E6, dependent on the type of permit requested. And B, name and address of the property owner on which the dumpster will be kept, location of the dumpster on said property, and the name, address, and phone number of the owner of the dumpster.
I like that. Joyce?
Yeah, me too.
Don't have to ask Tom, because here they are.
I reserve my opinion till the end.
Each have.
All right, moving along.
Page 3, section E, number 10, deleting number 10 completely.
Okay. Joyce?
I'm just reading it over again.
All right.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay. Page 5, section J. Okay. After violations, we are considering adding the violations below are the responsibility of the applicant listed on the temporary dumpster permit application.
That makes big sense to me. That's great.
That definitely spells it out, the responsibility.
And lastly, page 5, section J, number 2, for subsets A, B, and C, increasing the fine amounts. So for letter A, first offense going from 25 to 50. B, second offense going from 50 to 100. And C, third offense from 75 to 200.
Colleen? I'm gonna ask you, where you have your hands in other towns. Does that make sense to you?
Yes,
Okay,
yep. As a matter of fact, we're gonna, once these are finalized, we'll be parroting them.
okay. Very good. All right, I'm good with that based on that information. Joyce?
Yeah, me too.
All right, good to go.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay, so vote and a date of effectiveness.
Okay,
I make a motion that we accept the reconstruction things that we've decided in these for
residential dumpster.
residential dumpster. Yeah,
Yeah, that, all that.
All that.
thank you.
What you
Effective
said. And effective
Immediately.
immediately.
Okay,
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
So am I.
Joyce, I.
Alan, I.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can
Thank
we
you,
just go
Jack.
back to the first item again? I should have looked at this
I'm
paperwork
sorry.
Which one?
about the
Absolutely.
17 Hartford
Oh,
Ave.
yeah.
I should have looked at the paperwork too. So my guess to answer your question, Tom, is
Yeah.
this, is that it was a cesspool. And Joyce pointed out on the plan that there was, some contamination, possible contamination there. So they're going to remove that soil.
Right.
The reason why it was voluntary probably is because they knew from the person, the company servicing their system, probably told them it's not going to pass.
Got it.
Right, so that's the voluntary.
Got it. So it could have been straight up.
Right,
Yeah.
and that, because like, I know if I ever sold my house, I know, because my, person told me, don't bother with a Title V holidays.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, thank
So
you.
just
Yeah.
add to it, I should look at
Oh, that's okay. No, sure, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking for the icons of a cesspool on that
Yeah.
particular.
Yeah,
drawing.
but it does say on Form 9 that it is nine, it is a cesspool.
Okay,
When you
And-
see an icon of a cesspool that looks like this, what does that mean?
Yeah.
One of them round
It ain't
white
working.
things.
It ain't working, baby.
All right. No, thank you very much. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah,
that detail.
Thank you. Yep.
All right. Anything else on the dumpster regulation amendment topic? We're all good? All right. We're gonna move on to old business. Rabies clinic update. I haven't done anything on that. I believe I was waiting for a time frame. Now, I could be confusing myself. But so
That's
that,
probably on me, because I talked to Kevin. Kevin said absolutely he was on board, but I think you're right. I didn't follow up with the timeframe, so.
because once I have a time frame, then I'll approach
Usually they do them in the spring, but let me,
the vet that I work with and say, we'd like to do it the month of, or between
okay,
April 15th and
That's on
May
you.
15th, and see, that way he'll know whether he's available, unless in case he has commitments to another town.
yep. I'll follow up with Kevin in the morning.
All right, fantastic. And feel free to reach out to me right away.
Yep, I will.
A little extra time on my hands in between snowstorms.
Mhm.
So I'll reach out, try to get that squared away.
Okay,
Thank you.
We heard you were the best snowplower in town.
Might be the oldest. Both of us. Get tired quick.
Yeah,
Okay, anything else on rabies clinic?
Nope.
All right, thank you. Board of Health admin updates, please.
All right, for the VNA fiscal year 27 contract, we have that in hand, and it's gonna be for the board's review and discussion. I compared it with last year's fiscal year 26 contract, and there are a couple of changes. They are raising their prices.
yes, they certainly are.
And section A, number 5 of the contract. It's on the top of second page.
Is that last?
Yep. Number 5 will go from $75 an hour to $120 an hour. Get that?
Had it. I know I did. Because I read it. No, I read it right here. Thank you. Miss 1 week of school and
Double-sided, it's double-sided, Alice.
you get behind. Attention.
All right, so again, section A, number 5 will go from $75 an hour to $120 an hour. And on the last page, under terms of the agreement, an annual rate of $5,250 will now be $7,200.
Okay, the only question I had on that is I thought I noticed on the budget paper they gave me.
That did not increase the budget whatsoever, but it still covers our cost.
Okay, because I thought you had in this year, right, we're in 2026.
Yes, correct.
I thought you had 7,200 in the block.
7,500 was in the box.
Okay, 7,500 was,
Correct.
okay, because it didn't look like it changed even though this went up.
No, 7,500 this year, 7,500 for the next fiscal year contract. So I didn't change the budget at all because it's still within the range of the contract.
Okay, so that budgetary number includes this contract plus.
Yes.
No, I just wanted, it looked strange that we were having an increase, but yet our budgetary numbers for 26 and 27 were the same.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So board's discussion.
It is what it is.
necessary services.
Well, do we have any concerns at all with the current services that are being provided? I think they've
I
done a
think
really good job.
I mean, I've heard
We're
so many
fortunate to have
people
the same
have
person consistently.
people say to me, oh my gosh, they do such a great job. And actually, when Dan came home from the hospital the first time before we knew he had cancer and everything, they were so good to him because he had that congestion in his chest and all that stuff, you know? So I was very pleased with them personally.
Yeah, everybody loves Ann Labonte.
Yeah,
Mhm.
she's very nice.
Yeah.
Well, it's just also a peace of mind too, to know that, she's monitoring, the Maven system. If we do have communicable diseases, they are doing home visits. If we do have a, medical question, whatnot, Ann is right there.
Mhm.
And, and then not to mention the services that we provide, are very important, to keep, to try and keep for those older residents who like the services within the town to be able to provide them.
How long has it been since they asked for more money?
It's been the same rate since I've been here. That's 4 years.
Right, and I can think the only time was during COVID. That
Correct.
there were
Yes.
extra expenses associated with that.
Mhm.
And I believe we had, was it CARES Act money? We had
Yep.
to help us with that, and that was very understandable, being a extraordinary situation.
Not to mention if we ever do, have some other type of, emergency where we have to provide, immunization at the local level, to have, a nurse and services in place that are familiar with our community. And that that we work with and we have that interpersonal relationship with is invaluable.
Yeah, I think the consistency, especially for a town of our size, in anything that we do has been huge. And, I hate to say it, but I mean, we're seeing increases everywhere.
Yes.
We couldn't hire a part-time employee.
Just gonna say the same thing. We have to have something.
Right.
So in lieu of having a nurse on staff, this has to be in place. And like you said, there's no way you could get a nurse like that for this
Mhm.
value.
Right, and, Ann is a big part of that.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, she's so familiar. Just, just if you have a resident that's, in crises or anything, and to be able to, call up and have a conversation with her and, and give her, the outline, and then possibly, it may end in a home visit. And that service is in itself is invaluable.
The hourly, how does that affect that doesn't affect us, that affects the client?
I'm not as in.
The hourly increase that you mentioned?
75 to 120, you referred to.
I think just the flat rate part of the contract, it's included in the contract.
Okay, so that's how they arrived at the number.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was in addition to.
No.
All right, so, need a vote, a motion and a vote.
Well, I have a motion to renew the BNA, statement BNA agreement they have with the Board of Health Amendment.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Oh, my.
Joyce, I.
Al and I.
I will need your John Hancock on the last page, please.
Just want to make sure this this says draft on it. So-
No, it's the last page. I'm just gonna take the
Okay.
last page.
I got you. Just wanted to make sure I do it right.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. All right. Anything else on the BNA? All right, so we're moving on to fiscal year 27 proposed budget.
All right, present to the board, my fiscal year budget for 2027 for the board's review. But we wanted to go by subject line item. Jeremy's working on the salary, so I don't have anything for Colleen and I. I spoke to him today, so that's not even part of it for right now. Animal inspector, we're still trying to talk with Chief, that guy. He's still working on the regionalization of the animal control, where we combine animal control with the animal inspector.
Yeah,
They're thinking $8,000, so I was thinking increasing now, because I'm assuming we will get the combined services. So that's my reasoning for raising it from $5,000 to $8,000.
right.
Obviously, the Board of Health member stipends, which none of you take, that hasn't changed. Newspaper ads, again, I haven't changed the budgetary line item for that. Again, we use those for the legal notices we put in the newspaper. Sometimes we'll put an ad in for like their mosquito event or the sustainability electronics event. Tobacco Control Alliance, calling in the MHOA. Again, if we ever get charged for services by the MHOA, right now we're under their own grant, but in case that does not get renewed, we have a backup. So just in case. Again, the Salmon Family Health VNA contract, again, it did not increase that as it still covers our current contract to the new fiscal year contract. Lake Nipmuc and the Minden Old Landfill, I increased both to 5%. Again, this is due to supplies and labor increase to both. So for Lake Nipmuc, I'm proposing $10,500 and increasing it to $11,025. That one. And Minden Old Landfill, it's $22,200, increasing it to $23,325. So for a total for testing lake and landfill, $34,350. Postage, I left alone at $1,500. Supplies, I left, actually I decreased it by $800. Right now I have a design suite that I use for all my advertising, my glorified pretty stuff that I do. They are getting a Canva design program, which the town will be subscribing to for 10 licenses. The Board of Health will have one of those licenses. So therefore,
Good.
that's going to be cost savings to the Board of Health budget. So that's why I took that amount off. So that will go from 2,300 down to 1,500. And MHOA for meetings, memberships and dues, etc. I left alone at 1,500. So Board of Health budget for 26 was 52,775. I'm increasing it to 56,625, which is a 7% increase. And as we know, the Board of Health budget is different from the waste collection budget as we have an enterprise account. The first one is municipal trash collection. I am increasing that by 5%, which is the contractual increase. So that will now be $20,550. Hazardous waste collection, $10,000 will still remain the same because that will still cover our current cost. So total for municipal waste collection would be $30,550. So that's a 3% increase. And subscriber portion, it's going from $474,650, increasing to $493,000. That's a 4% increase of a contractual increase. Subscriber recycling, this year it is going up out of the contract, so this is where it is increasing. That it will be no longer at the $110 rate. I believe it's going up to $120. So that's a 4% increase per ton. Trash disposal for Wheelabrator is going up $1,500. And for trash administration, I'm increasing it by $250 for postage increase because the stamps will be going up again for July.
Okay, so that's basically the money we paid Kelly Ryan.
Correct, Kelly Ryan. So the waste collection budget is $707,950 for fiscal year 26, increasing it to $733,800, which is an overall 4% increase.
And that money is all generated by subscribers.
The subscriber collection is not the municipal waste collection.
Right, okay. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Okay.
So subscriber collection itself $678,400 for fiscal year 26 will increase to 703, 250, which is still a 4% increase.
Gotcha.
So that's subscriber total cost. That's my proposed budget for the board's review and discussion.
I think that's really good. It's
Yeah, great job.
a very good job.
I try to stay within reason.
Yeah, I think you've done a great job.
Well, I think it's nice also that you've been with us long enough to have a history.
Mhm.
So you have firsthand numbers that are yours to refer back to see what the trends are, and you're good at tracking the trends. So, I mean, you're already an old hand at this.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
There's value in being old. But, you've done a great job, and, you've set some good practices up. So there's no reason that, we shouldn't be successful in the future. So thank you very much for, all the things you put into play.
Thank you.
Nothing really stands out. Colleen, what happens to fines that we collect?
Through the enterprise account,
No, I'm not talking trash. I'm talking in tobacco.
general fund,
Okay.
unless you set up you could set up a reserve up and do a warrant article up to X amount of dollars that the board could hold and then could use those fines for like education, and things like that. If you guys wanted to do a reserve fund account, you could easily do it would be the same kind of warrant article as the enterprise. It just that you would have to put a cap on it.
Would it be then technically a revolving account? Or no, you called it something different?
Yeah, revolving or reserve fund,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is, we do that every year. We approve, there's like 5 or 6 different.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they have caps
board
on
could-
them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think mainly I was asking the question only because of the Tobacco Control Alliance budget. Not that we aim to generate money from fines, because that's definitely not what we're trying to do, but I'm going to assume that the fines that we have collected help offset.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. I mean, matter of fact, you could keep track of them. I'm sure Jack does to see how much the board collected and helped offset, an operating budget maybe that had some, unforeseen expenses, and those monies were kind of used at the end of the year when they did the transfers,
Yeah, I'm thinking if someone were to ask what that is and why there's $1,000 expense there, it's always nice, to be able to explain that, some money is flowing in and going back out. Again, we're not in the business of trying to find somebody to generate money. We'd rather not.
I mean, you could, if the board decided to do that, and you had funds collected in the account, maybe possibly reduce the operating budget by say $500 because you had $1,000, in your revolving account. So you could use that money to help offset any expenses and actually reduce your operating budget by that amount of money.
Probably something to think about in the future.
Do we want to try to initiate something for this coming warrant?
Well, I'm thinking about the direction and your practice as a health agent, where education always comes first.
Yeah.
And the fact that I feel as though the board itself, we've always tried to make sure that we spend our money prudently. And that's why, again, why I was asking that question. When I see that, I want to make sure that if someone asks me, well, what is that and why do we have it? I want to have the correct answer for them. And I want to make sure that I understand it so I can explain it. But if the way the world appears to be going, where we know there are some towns in the state of Massachusetts that phasing tobacco out over time, that if there were fines and that money were held to be used to offset our tobacco-related contracts and provide more education, because we know we've talked about nicotine pouches. So just because cigarettes go away, doesn't mean necessarily the tobacco industry is going to go away.
Right. I can't understand how anybody would do nicotine. That's unbelievable to me.
Everybody has their thing and they have a right to do that. It's just that, you know, when we learn that how detrimental some of these things are, if there were educational programs that were funded within the Board of Health to maybe curb some of that, educate some of our young people that, you know, it's really not cool. Aside from the fact that it's going to hurt your health. So that might be something that we want to think of in the future. If someone feels passionate enough that they want to try to put something into play now, I'm all for it.
I just wonder if, I know we've been referring to the fines we collect on the tobacco side, but couldn't there also be fines that get generated and collected on the food side,
Oh, yeah,
right?
the whole thing. I mean, you could do it for, you know, you could do the reserve revolving account for any fines that are, you know, that are implemented through, you know, food inspections as well.
Would they have to be individual accounts?
No. No, as long as you identify it. But it would be nice, I mean, to have a reserve account for education. You know, I mean, I could see maybe at some point, and Matt, you actually gave me an idea while you were talking, to talk with the Tobacco Alliance and maybe have some type of small presentation, not a long presentation like in the schools about smoking butts and vaping and the
Nicotine
other
pouches.
things, you know?
I can remember most likely 5th or 6th grade.
Oh, yeah.
I can remember maybe the police department funded it out of, you know, monies that they collected. But I can remember very colorful brochures of pill form drugs.
Yep.
And I can remember a police officer coming in and, you know, discussing going down the wrong road, getting involved in these pill type drugs. And most of these were street drugs versus prescription drugs. But I can remember, you know, it was, you know, what to look out for. Not to feel bad if you have a friend that might be going down the wrong path. You can always seek out the school principal or a teacher that you trust and have a conversation that, you know, hey, my buddy, you know, I think he's going down the wrong road. And that kind of went away. I can only, you know, it was a period of time probably in the 70s when that took place. So, you know, I'm sure it helped. And I'm sure there were some kids that went down the wrong road anyway. But, you know, education in everything that you do seems to be a primary part of your approach.
Yep.
So along with, like I said, educating myself on that line, thinking of things that, you know, could be done that wouldn't be necessarily taxpayer money to maybe prevent.
Yep. Yeah, you could use that account for, you know, any fines that we collect, quite frankly. You know, I mean, even if we used the non-criminal citation for, you know, state housing inspections, any fines that we collect could be deposited into that account for, you know, and can be used. The board would have to vote on the use of it. You can't just, you know, go and write a check out.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But you know, it would be nice to have, you know, the funds collected and put aside for the board for, you know, education. I mean, I'm a, you know, firm believer, we all know this, education. I'd rather educate someone than be punitive.
When does this year's warrant close?
I think we just got an email from Jeremy. He confirmed when the town meeting was
That's May.
the
right?
dates in May, and then I think along with that, I thought he had in there the warrant. If there's
He
any-
did, but I didn't like read it thoroughly.
Yeah, it's probably like the end of March, beginning of April.
I would think it's sooner than that.
Really?
Well, if the meeting's in May, could it be that close to the meeting?
Sure.
End of March.
Can
Well,
be.
Probably March, but
Mm.
I'm thinking we have time,
Yeah,
you
we
know.
have time.
Yeah, well,
It's a basic article, just up to, $10,000. You
Yeah.
can talk to Jeremy and see if that's an okay amount.
mm,
Or look at the other revolving accounts and we'll see what the maximum is and just kind of parrot that. For now, if we collect more, then you can always go back to town meeting and request an increase.
I mean, I can think of many different ways, when I talk with restaurant inspections, to spend that money wisely, even if it were, on the Board of Health's part of their budget to run periodic educational programs as far as serve safe recertification, anything we could do to help those restaurants keep their people certified.
Mhm.
I mean, there are a lot of positive ways to, help the people we serve
Absolutely.
in all areas, not just in the tobacco section. So I'm open to anything. But again, initially I wanted to make sure that I understood what that line item was and where the funding comes for it and things like that. So,
We don't have any tracking mechanism that we have now that tells us the rate of fines that we accumulate in a given year, do we?
No, I wasn't keeping track, but I could say roughly no more than, since I've been here, $3,000.
And all the time.
Since I've been here, so the fines that we just issued this year alone for the tobacco, the habitual tobacco establishment a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
No food inspections have received fines. We haven't done any fines on dumpsters, so it's basically just tobacco fines. I'd say no more than $3,000 since I've been here.
and again, we're not trying to go out and find, generate money with fines, but if we could put that money to good use, I mean, we actually had someone that was before us that brought up, he would rather donate money for education than pay his fine.
Yeah.
He wasn't saying that he wasn't gonna pay it, but he himself brought up educating,
Mhm.
and that would be money well spent.
Mhm. Yeah, any of our regulations that have fines attached to them, if, the fine was issued and collected would go into that account from now on, as opposed to the general fund.
It makes sense. Let's to reprocess that money and use it for a good purpose. And not to say that going back to the general fund is not a good purpose. I'm not saying that because it does go to other things if there's a need, but if we wanted to kind of have it, no, it goes back to something within our.
Specialized to the Board of Health.
Yeah, exactly. It would be a nice little,
Well, again, I'm all for, enhancing the services that we can provide without putting any additional burden on taxpayer dollars directly. I mean, there are some expenses that are kind of indirect with putting those things on. But, it definitely softens the blow. If, it's funds that are generated, sort of within the Board of Health and then expended within the Board of Health.
and so I would say I would be all for trying to do something this cycle myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to. I mean, I can draft it, it's, probably 3 sentences.
Yep. And from a reason I asked about what you thought about as far as what we've taken in, as far as a maximum 10,000, I would think would be more than enough. You could even ask for potentially even less, like maybe 5,000.
That's what I was thinking,
Would
5,000.
be a better number just to put out in front of the people, right? Not that we'd ever anyway collect that, but
Right.
at least it's the knowledge of knowing that any of those fines that do get accumulated for whatever it is, you come back to the purpose that we define that account for.
Because with Colleen's education, they won't be getting fines because they're doing it the right way.
That's the goal, right?
Mm.
Well,
I mean, it's worked so far.
Yeah.
Ask the question.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, see what you get. You know, I mean, if it's not a crowded warrant or you're not anticipated to be a crowded warrant,
It's a housekeeping warrant.
I was gonna say, that's no big, should be no real big deal.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, and you're right about keeping it at 5, then people won't be like, but not that it has a direct effect on them, it really doesn't.
Yeah.
We've only, like Jack said, collected up to $3,000 so far, so, I mean, it's not a huge takeaway from the, operating budget.
right, but we're really not in that business
Right,
Mhm.
right.
by any means. Okay. See what we get for feedback.
Any questions from Tom or Joyce about the budget?
No, very nice job.
Thank you.
Colors are very nice.
I try to make a difference.
Yeah.
Try to make a difference.
No,
I mean, it makes it so much easier. I wish I could
it
do that.
does, makes it a lot easier to read.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
All right.
So
Thank
the
you.
way, it's the way this will be with that municipal trash dollar amount. That's that amount that, well, now it would be 2550 gets pulled out. And then the
Correct.
remainder is what gets divided amongst them.
Yes, since Jeremy finally made the separate accounts in the KBS Springbrook budget
Yeah.
software,
Yeah,
there is municipal trash line item that has that amount in there now. So it's separated from the enterprise account.
okay.
So it does have its own line item now.
So what happens is, so this is allocated into this for our purposes, is money moving from this other one to backfill to cover this.
Say again?
So this looks like it's Department 430, that's the account, right?
That's the waste collections account, yes.
So in this account where we have this 2550 for the municipal trash collection as part of this account,
Yep,
right? But we're not, that's being funded by
the town general fund.
the town's general fund. They're gonna pull that from somewhere to,
Correct.
Cool.
They have to fund that line item,
right?
that line item and the hazardous waste line item.
Okay.
The town funds that line
Okay,
item.
okay.
Yeah.
And then we get money back from Harvey towards hazardous waste.
Correct. That's why I'm not raising the increase because we get that $5,000.
Okay.
$12,000.
Very good.
That's all I have.
Okay,
Very nice, Jim.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
continue on. All right, so we're moving to health agent updates. 28 Haywood Circle, please.
This is an ongoing case there. It was generated as a request from the property owner. We perform the state sanitary code inspection. This property owner currently rents out. It's a 3-bedroom, single family, and she rents out 2 of the bedrooms to 2 separate tenants. And she was concerned about state sanitary code violations, one tenant in particular. There's a little bit of a history there with the landlord and the tenant. So long story short, Jack and I went over there 2 Mondays ago.
2 Mondays ago.
The police and the EMTs were there as well. The tenant number 1 was not prepared for the inspection, stated that the landlord hadn't given proper notice in a timely fashion. So we, recoiled ourselves, rescheduled it to the following Monday, which Jack and I went with a police officer just because of the history of the property. I inspected the property. I'm in the process of typing up my report right now. There wasn't anything there other than there was a toilet in the master suite that is not functioning, but there's 2 other bathrooms within the single family residence. So it's not like there's no bathroom in the facility. That, and we're gonna make the fire chief aware that there were 2 smoke detectors that were removed from the hallway, the first floor hallway and the upstairs hallway. Other than that, I mean, the things that she was concerned about were really not, anything that would cause me to have to act on an emergency basis. So I'm in the process of formulating that report right now. And I will serve the property owner with it. I explained to the property owner a little bit of education. She made the request. There's landlord responsibilities and there's tenant responsibilities. Landlord responsibilities are the structural elements of the property itself. Tenant responsibilities are to, maintain in a clean and sanitary manner. The stove, I opened it up, it could probably be cleaned. The stove top, someone should wipe it off. Someone had made coffee, there were coffee stains and, some cremora or some, whatever they use that was there. I mean, they're minor things. Those are minor things. There were 2 mattresses in the garage that I'm gonna note, and I advised the property owner that they should be removed sooner than later. So she'll receive the usual inspection report with the detail, with the findings, and then the commentary from the state sanitary code on the violations, each by regulation, what the requirement is, what the violation was, what the corrective action is going to be, and be given a time frame to bring the property into compliance. She's in the process of evicting this individual, but that's really not anything that we're going to get ourselves involved in.
Where is 28 Hayward Circle?
You know where Cahill's property come down Hartford Ave there,
Yeah.
left Warfield Lane,
Oh, yeah.
go up there, bang that right, and it's a cul-de-sac.
It's another property.
Yeah, it's on,
24.
so it's 28.
Okay.
Bless them.
Wow. I don't know.
So anyway, thankful for the police officers being present and, just working together as a team to investigate the concerns. Provide the property owner with, some peace of mind that she was very concerned about the condition of her property,
Is she living in that house?
I'm not sure.
That's kind of scary to me.
Would it be helpful to give a few suggestions on disposing of those mattresses, like the green team that we work with,
Yep,
just to help her expedite
yep, good
getting them
idea.
out of there?
Yeah, I mentioned the recycling center too.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, give them a little nudge.
Mm-hmm. Other than that, I mean, the house really, it's a newer house. It was built in 99 or something like
Yeah.
that. So there wasn't really anything else there that was alarming that, I thought would jeopardize the health and the welfare of the tenants, in the property.
Yeah, not a typical situation for a neighborhood like that, that arrangement.
Mm-hmm. So I'll keep the board posted on that. Food inspections, so we're, in our circle of, every 6 months, we have a couple that are coming up. Matter of fact, we did a couple of inspections today. I did a couple of inspections Monday? Yeah, Monday and Tuesday. So there's a couple of more that are due now, like that 6 month rotation. So we'll be addressing those too.
Very good. Anybody have any questions on food inspections?
Not food inspections, just kind of a follow-up question. I think at our last meeting, we're going to be attending a meeting the following Monday. And there was something about extra funds that might be available that we could use for more
Yeah,
tests.
so with the Blackstone Valley Partnership, we did speak with Connor, who's in charge of that for the flu and COVID combined testing.
Yeah,
We approved those funds. He's gonna order them when they come in.
They're
We don't know.
approved,
But
okay.
Yeah, we had to vote on it.
yes.
We all have represent, each town, so we all have a vote, so we voted
Yeah,
absolutely.
is getting 3,000, but I don't know how many's in a box, so it's 3,000 units. So it could be 2 in a box, so that's 1,500 boxes, so I don't know.
We were out of it
Completely.
completely.
Well, I got 4 left over next door, but Once those are gone, those are gone.
Well, it's good to know. I was just curious how that,
Yeah,
yeah. good.
But supposedly this will be flu and COVID test in one.
yep. Yeah, they fly off the
Yeah.
shelf.
So we got voted to approve that last week.
Yeah, last Monday.
We
Last
did-
Monday,
we did on
yeah.
Monday.
Joyce, anything?
No, I'm really impressed with everything that you're doing.
All right.
Really, I think it's wonderful. I mean, I come from back in the day, you know?
Day in the back. Okay,
When I was doing everything.
topics not anticipated within 48 hours.
I have two. The first one is kind of a follow-up, and it just kind of caught my eye. All the paperwork that we got at the beginning of the year with the census, and we had the keeping the livestock form and the senior form that we had to return to seniors, IB one. Hope you got my form. I had a question on the keeping of livestock. So I believe last year, we were gonna look to modify that form, and it looks like we never actually did.
I don't remember what the modification was gonna be.
So the reference to at the top had to do with, really didn't reference the fact that the local board of health had any involvement in the animal inspector selection.
Okay.
And it kind of makes it look like MDR's doing all the work. But in the process, we kind of are involved.
You vote for it.
Well, yeah, so we
and
do is
appoint it.
we pick the person and we submit our selection of the person we want to nominate. So I think we had agreed that we were going to modify that first
You remember that, so I will go back to that
paragraph to kind of make it more, just
collaborative.
more, well, reflective of the local board having a hand in that.
But you do, because once you appoint that person, right,
Right.
the MDA form that goes back to the state,
Right.
it's your signatures.
It is,
Yes.
yes,
It's the board signatures, approving authority signatures.
correct. It's just that on this keeping of livestock letter, you'd never know that. If you were a layperson,
Hmm.
you never know that we had any involvement with this.
How many years have we sent that out?
2.
Well, it's been fairly recent. I think last
Yeah.
year was the first one.
Last year was the first one we got
First time we
back,
did it.
so I'm getting back the second year ones now.
Okay.
So it's something that.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't a long period of time, but I couldn't remember which one or two.
So something to note for the next cycle.
Right.
Definitely, yeah.
We'll work
That's
on
my
it.
first thing to do first thing tomorrow morning is check on that.
Not to make it the first thing, maybe the third.
So that I don't
Third
forget
thing.
again.
The third thing.
Third thing,
Hey,
okay.
look, by 8 o'clock in the morning, Jack's on item number 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. It was nothing specific on wording. I just thought if we somehow interject that.
Yeah, I vaguely
We have
remember
a-
that
You
discussion.
too, yes.
The other thing I had was, and talking about the local upgrade yesterday in preparation for the meeting tonight, something had come up about Title V, and we were talking about when that whole conversation we had about whether that was voluntary versus whether it was Title V or not. The thought, it was mentioned to me that this transaction, well, in the discussion I was having, had to do with the transactions that take place that are cash transactions per se, that don't involve banks, that typically require Title V's, right? Or might not.
Right. The cash transactions still require Title V. It's, they think that they're circumventing Title V, but they're not. There's no exclusion in Title V that says, oh, if you pay cash, you don't have to do Title V. That doesn't exist. What exists is, so say like, well, we had a property, right, in town that the seller, instead of going through a bank, took back the mortgage themselves. They're the bank.
Sure.
That is not considered a conveyance under Title V. So that would not require a Title V report. A cash transaction all day long.
Under the current Title V guidelines,
Correct.
right? So my thought was, would the board want to consider doing something from a board perspective locally that would make any transfer of property in any way, shape, or form require the Title V, I guess, assuming that there wasn't already one on file that was recently done. So say you have nothing on file for 20 years or 15 years, and a property is going to transfer somehow. Should we make it so that Title V should be done, so that there's something on file for that property?
Currently, how long is the Title V inspection good for? 3 years?
2 years, 3 years, if it's been pumped in from first year, second year, it'll be good for 3 years.
Okay.
Wait for show proof that it's been pumped every year.
I thought somewhere along the line, we had already done something similar, or the state had done something similar.
Well, I
because
thought the
remember
check said,
when a property changed, let's say I sold my property to my daughter,
Correct. The Title V is not required.
but I thought we changed that.
No, because we brought it up, but then we were dealing with the well regulations. Me and Colin, we talked about this. We were dealing with the well regulations. Karis put that on the back burner and I never thought about it ever again. So we talked
So
about it.
I'm right that the discussion existed.
It did exist, yes. But we wanted to go through Karis first to make sure it was hunky dory,
Right,
but
right.
with
Everything else.
everything else, just went
Yeah.
back burner and burned up.
At my level of education of real estate transfers, whatever level that is, I would expect if a property owner decided they were gonna be the bank and took the mortgage back, that, I would consider that a conveyance.
Well, in Title V, it's not.
And we've had many discussions about cash transfers. And the
Yeah,
fact that,
cash transfer, there's no, that it still requires it, but if you're the bank, if there's paper taken back, just like under Title V, between a parent and a child, a Title V is not required.
interesting,
Mhm.
because again, I understood with the cash. And a lot of times, those were the ones that we had to go looking for.
Mhm.
Because the bank wasn't involved, the process didn't get held up. Where normally when a bank is involved, if the Title V hasn't been done, the bank is protecting themselves.
Mhm.
So the process stops until that paperwork or
Well, yeah,
that
'cause
inspection takes place. We might not always get the paperwork.
right, the bank can't fund it without that.
Um,
what's your take on that?
I think it should be an agenda item. You know,
Okay.
for further discussion, maybe resurrect it with Karis, you know, and then we can talk about it. Not under,
Yeah.
you know,
Exactly.
especially where it was an agenda item before.
Right.
So it's not an unanticipated,
Right.
you know,
Yeah, makes sense.
All right,
Yeah,
so
put
put
it
it on
on.
next meeting's agenda. Anything else on the topics not anticipated?
Nope, those are the two I had.
Joyce?
Oh,
All right,
good.
good and welfare for the board?
I did have one there.
Okay,
Um,
you first.
but you got one?
I got one.
Go ahead. You go.
I saw an interesting
Might be
bit,
the same one.
it might be, I saw an interesting bit on Fox News in the last couple of days on PFAS. One of the news reporters actually went to have a blood test. See what PFAS was showing up in her blood.
oh, yeah,
She went to, I believe it was Quest Diagnostics.
yeah.
It was roughly $350. And her levels came back on the low end of moderate. But the thing that I really found interesting was they made a statement that if the exposure stops, eventually your body does start to eliminate
Mhm.
these PFAS. And the other thing that I found interesting is PFAS are like in everything. I think cosmetics. Yeah, it's like everywhere. So it's almost impossible
Not get them.
To eliminate it.
in today's modern world.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just, firefighting foam that gets into the pond that you swim in as a kid. If you put lipstick on, there could be PFAS.
Yep.
So Tom, no lipstick.
Yeah.
But, I wish they had showing an actual list of maybe the things that are most well known to us and used by us on a daily basis that have PFAS in them. I'm sure I could go looking for one. But those two things, the fact that your body does start to eliminate them over time if you stop exposure, which doesn't really sound possible.
Yeah, with so many things happening.
And the fact that, depending upon where you may have grown up, it may pay to have a test and find out what might be down the road. And it's $350, which in today's world is not a lot of money when it comes to your future health.
Mm.
So I found that a very interesting bit on Fox
Yeah.
News.
Hmm.
A little alarming, but
I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's like that Nova scan, you can go in and have that whole body scan.
Oh, it's
That's that.
differential.
And it diagnoses, possible future kidney issues, I mean,
How much do you want?
well, that's the thing,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
That's like if you had a choice, right? If you could know the day that you're gonna die, would you wanna know,
No.
right?
I might want to know the answer to that.
Really?
No, oh God, I'd be thinking about it every day.
Well, it
You
depends
become-
upon how long you want to party for before the day.
Well, yeah, I may have a
Off
couple
the
of months I
counter.
want to sell before that day.
So it's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you can go to Fox News.
Don't worry, anybody out there.
It was within the last week. Like I said, kind of an interesting bit caught my attention.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
And to think that, this reporter, volunteered to go and check herself out.
Well, it's, because the FDA allows a certain percentage of plastic in our food, It's accepted.
Yep.
Accepted.
That's scary.
well, tomorrow I'll be looking for a PFAS list.
Well, no, it's just
I know.
in the modern world, there are some things that are almost impossible to avoid. And there are probably most likely exposures that we've all had, maybe because of the houses we live in or the cars we drive
Mhm.
every day, that there are things that we're exposed to that aren't the best for us.
Mhm.
But you're gonna stop driving your car.
Mm-mm.
You're gonna move. In fact, I was talking with someone who is a local builder. And he was telling me today that because of the energy efficiency
Oh,
standards,
yeah.
the houses are so tight in it.
Yeah.
You
No,
have to put a system in,
Yeah.
introduce outside air.
Correct.
that's how tight they are.
That's been going on for years.
Unbelievable.
So I'm not gonna complain about my drafty windows anymore.
No.
Just about to say the same thing.
Unfortunately,
Come
You're
to
better off.
Healthy.
comply
AT,
with the state and federal
24.
standards for housing. You have to meet these laws.
Yes.
Or you can't get an occupancy permit.
Now they have to be solar ready. They have to be energy efficient.
And we wonder why every house is $1 million.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's it.
But can you imagine having to introduce outside air?
Yeah.
That's
Put a
great.
system in to do that.
Yeah.
Can't open a window
That
and
whole-
let some polluted air in.
Exactly.
That whole PFAS thing reminded me of a phrase from probably 40+ years ago. It was a commercial that a company put out there. I think it might have been Monsanto. And the tagline at the end of it was, without chemicals, life itself would be impossible.
Right. I remember that.
Oh, wow.
I do remember that, Tom.
DuPont,
I can almost hear it.
DuPont, Monsanto?
Maybe, yeah, it might have been, right. I remember that. It might, I think it was DuPont.
Well, Monsanto unfortunately is responsible for Roundup.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I know I was told that originally Roundup was supposed to be a laundry detergent.
Yes, I read that as well. That's right.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, think about it. I mean, you can make, pesticide out of home.
Household
things that-
things.
That's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
All these helpful hints.
Yeah, well, they've got that, I shared it with Jack,
The vinegar and
The weed.
Yeah.
Yes,
weed killer.
yes.
right, the 30% vinegar, the Dawn washer soap
Yeah,
and
Epsom salt.
Epsom salt.
yes.
And the chemistry makes sense.
Yeah.
You got a burning agent, you've got a drying agent, and you've got a tackifier,
And it works excellent.
you know?
Yeah, I know, I used it too.
And what are you using it for?
Weeds,
Weeds.
poison ivy.
Poison
Oh.
ivy.
And poison ivy,
Oh.
because
Because that's what
poison,
he used it for the wells at the landfill.
Right,
That was covered with all the poison ivy stuff.
right.
yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
Yeah, that was on Facebook, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years ago. My wife got it off of Facebook when
Yep.
everything blew up about Roundup.
Mhm.
You know, as an alternative.
Mm,
And, you know, most weeds, you don't really have to kill the weed for the roots. You just have to keep it defoliated. Because without leaves, it can't make food. If you can't make food, it's gonna die. So you don't necessarily have to torch the weed to kill it. You just have to periodically treat it to keep it defoliated.
Mhm.
So, you know, again, when you think of the basic 3 things that they're putting in that concoction,
what are they again?
30% vinegar.
But you have to buy the vinegar,
It's called 30% vinegar.
right,
Yeah, Home
Okay.
Depot, Lowe's, in fact, now they sent it. They have
Amazon
they
has
have
it.
like a lavender scent.
We do have
Yeah.
11%.
Yeah, 'cause the
Oh,
vinegar,
it's very potent.
it's pretty strong.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, you know, someone put too much salad dressing on my salad, because that's what it smells like. Epsom salt and Dawn dishwashing soap. I don't remember it's
So I got to the work.
It's a
I
gallon.
I have a Dawn dish,
Yeah, but it's like a
I think-
gallon,
I have a
A cup.
gallon,
and then the Dawn is like,
I want to say tablespoon.
yeah,
a tablespoon.
yeah, I don't have the formula with me, but
I have a
like I
mixed
said,
one.
it was out there, yeah, and basically all you're doing is defoliating the wheat.
Hmm.
And I think they recommend you do it in the morning. I'm trying to
I think you do it any way you want because it does.
How often would you have to apply that?
It depends upon what you're trying to kill.
Well, poison ivy,
Poison ivy, I would say probably every 2 weeks.
every 2 weeks all season?
Well, until it
Until it
stops
dies.
producing leaves.
I think I only did the ones at the landfill.
You know,
But again, they indicated with the next week, just do the testing anyway, so.
yeah, a lot of times, the first time you may like defoliate it, and then 3, 4 weeks later, the leaves might start to sprout again.
Okay,
So in order for it to be effective, you have to wait for those leaves to get reasonable size,
okay,
because it takes it in by the leaf.
got it. Okay,
It's not by the ground. It's not like buying, you know, the old fashioned ortho
Right.
Yeah.
ground,
right,
total ground control in the metal can, it's the can, where you're trying to get it into the roots
yeah,
and systemically, you know, so it's a lot tamer. And
but
that-
eventually what would happen, it would ultimately do what, say, like the Roundup product does. It would eventually kill it so that it would not come back of it?
Well, the reason it kills it is because the plant can't make food anymore. Most plants, Mother Nature's pretty smart. She makes food a year in advance.
Mm.
So if you take your typical deciduous tree, let's take a maple. When in the spring, when that tree leaves out, it's working on last year's food that was stored in the roots. Okay, so this season, that maple tree with those nice leaves is gonna, by photosynthesis, is gonna make food that in the fall is gonna get stored in the roots for the next year. That's why, like, when you have gypsy moth infestations, the first year that you get a bad infestation, you usually don't lose any deciduous trees
Yeah.
or any evergreens.
Yeah.
It takes 2 or 3 years in a row,
Hmm.
because every year that tree can make less food for the next year. So Mother Nature, like I said, she's a pretty smart gal. She's planning ahead. And that's usually a drought, same thing. You know, you have a drought 2 or 3 years in a row, that's when you start losing trees and plants. It's not always just a one-time situation. Just basic botany. So by keeping a plant that makes its food in the leaves, de-leaved, defoliated, it can't make food. It starves. And that's a kinder way of doing things
Yeah,
for us.
right. We'll apply that this year.
All right, Tom, what do you got?
And when you say 30% vinegar, is it just household
1
vinegar?
gallon. No, it's 1 gallon cleaning vinegar.
Or cleaning?
Yeah, it's pretty potent.
Yeah, when you look at it, it will say right on it, 30% vinegar right on the label.
Yeah, it was
In
Yeah.
big letters.
about $20 a
That's
gallon.
that's the title of the vinegar, 30% vinegar.
Okay. Thank you.
And it's potent.
Yes.
Yeah, so the one thing I had was an email that we had gotten from Dylan Greenholm, she's our town planner.
Yes.
And she wants something, she was asking all the folks to boards and committees to kind of pass along to all the Mendon residents. Essentially, how it goes, it says, the town of Mendon and the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission want to hear from you, meaning the residents of Mendon, about your experiences with internet connection, access to devices, digital literacy, and more. Your feedback will help us to understand barriers to internet access and affordability, and is crucial to finding solutions for closing the digital divide in Mendon. To take the survey, visit, and there's a link here. And the link is bit.ly/MA digital access. But for those that might not have gotten that, you can go to the town website. And it's up on the town website. If you scroll down a little bit into the latest news section on the first page, you'll see all the different news things that we have on there. And the one on the far left happens to be, it's called the Mendon Digital Equity Survey. You can click on that. And then on the next page, it'll have the link that you can click on. So for anyone interested out there in taking the survey, it would be much appreciated. Oh, there you go. Jack's gonna far left.
There you go. Oh, yeah, right on the left.
Far left, Jack, over there.
And I just gotta share so everybody sees it.
Oh, got it. Okay.
You a good sharer?
That one there, you click on that. And then down below, scroll up, here's the link right there, survey link.
Okay.
You click on that, that'll take you right to the survey. It's being hosted by the MBI, which is the Massachusetts Broadband Institute. And it simply says it's an anonymous, completely anonymous survey. And it should be completed by only one individual of the household. Not everybody in town has to take it, just by household.
Gotcha.
There you have it.
Okay. Okay.
Anything else?
I got nothing.
Next meeting?
February 25th.
February 25th.
Yep.
6 o'clock again.
6 o'clock.
Motion to adjourn.
So move.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
I accept that.
All in favor?
Tom, aye.
Joyce, aye.
Alan, aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Good night. After all, we don't want to have to come back and redo a motion.